The urban experience. The city pulses around you. A symphony of stimulation that never truly ceases. Light cascades from countless sources. Sounds layer in complex patterns. Movement flows in every direction, and sensory information bombards your nervous system in quantities our ancestors could scarcely imagine. For the first time in human history, the majority of people worldwide live in urban environments, with projections from the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs suggesting this proportion will reach 68% by 2050. This unprecedented shift represents not just a change in living arrangement, but a fundamental transformation in the sensory and psychological context of human experience. The urban environment presents a fascinating paradox for psychological well-being. Cities offer unparalleled opportunities for social connection, cultural stimulation, and economic mobility. Yet these same dense, complex environments can create unique psychological challenges through sensory overload, social stress, and nature disconnection. Understanding this urban psychology helps you navigate city life with greater awareness, finding balance between stimulation and restoration, connection and privacy, opportunity and overwhelm. The psychological challenges of urban environments. Research increasingly reveals distinct psychological patterns associated with urban living, some testing our evolutionary calibration in significant ways. Sensory intensity and cognitive load. Perhaps the most fundamental urban challenge involves attentional overload, the continuous demand on cognitive resources required to process, filter, and respond to urban sensory intensity. Cities bombard your nervous system with information, creating a high cognitive load that can deplete mental resources. Walking down a busy city street requires processing hundreds of moving objects, navigating pedestrian patterns, filtering multiple sound sources, and interpreting numerous signals, all simultaneously. This unconscious processing consumes significant neural resources, explaining the mental fatigue many experience after navigating dense urban areas. Research demonstrates that after periods of high urban stimulation, people show decreased performance on tasks requiring focused attention and increased irritability, classic signs of directed attention fatigue. Psychological density effects. Urban environments create psychological density, the subjective experience of crowding that influences stress levels and social behavior. Research distinguishes between objective spatial density and perceived crowding, with the latter more strongly predicting psychological effects like increased cortisol and heightened amygdala activity. This social overload from continuously processing complex social information creates significant cognitive and emotional demands. Importantly, it's often density without control, the inability to regulate social stimulation, that creates strain rather than density itself. When urban environments provide privacy options and personal territory, even high densities can be manageable. Nature disconnection. A fundamental urban challenge is nature disconnection syndrome, the effects emerging from limited access to the natural elements our nervous systems evolved with. As explored in earlier chapters, natural environments provide crucial psychological resources. Urban settings often restrict these resources, with limited green space and predominantly built surroundings. This deficit has measurable consequences. Population studies show increased mood disorders and attention problems in areas with reduced green space, even after controlling for socioeconomic factors. Neuroimaging research even demonstrates different brain activation patterns in people raised in highly urbanized versus more natural environments, particularly in stress processing regions. Many urban dwellers may not consciously recognize this background stress, a subtle, continuous tension that often releases powerfully when natural settings are accessed. Navigational complexity and spatial stress. The physical configuration of cities, their layout and legibility, creates another psychological dimension. Humans possess cognitive mapping capacity to create internal spatial representations, a system evolved in natural environments with consistent reference points. Urban environments with poor legibility, unclear organization, confusing street patterns can create measurable psychological stress and navigational anxiety. Even with modern tools, illegible cities produce micro-orientation decisions that collectively consume cognitive resources. When surroundings lack what urban designer Kevin Lynch called imageability, clear paths, edges, districts, nodes, and landmarks, your brain works harder, creating cognitive, urban design and mental health outcomes. While these challenges exist, the psychological impact of urban living varies dramatically based on specific design characteristics. Thoughtfully designed cities can support psychological flourishing. The protective power of green infrastructure. Access to natural elements integrated throughout the urban fabric. Green infrastructure like parks, street trees, and community gardens is perhaps the most documented factor influencing urban psychological health. A landmark 2019 study published in PNAS by White and colleagues examined data from nearly 20,000 participants and found that people with access to at least 2 hours of nature exposure weekly reported significantly better psychological well-being. This benefit showed a threshold effect, with significant advantages at 2 hours and additional benefits up to about 5 hours. Beneficial urban green spaces are often accessible within walking distance from residences, varied in size and function to support different psychological needs, integrated throughout neighborhoods rather than isolated in distant parks, designed to provide multiple sensory experiences beyond mere visual greenery. Neighborhood design and social well-being. The structure of urban neighborhoods significantly influences psychological health through effects on social connection and movement patterns. Research consistently demonstrates better mental health outcomes in neighborhoods with traditional neighborhood development characteristics. Walkable scale, mixed uses, human-scaled architecture, and public spaces supporting casual interaction. These qualities appear protective against urban social isolation. A major study in urban studies found residents of such neighborhoods reported higher social capital and lower depression rates. Key design features include active street frontages that encourage pedestrian activity and casual encounters, semi-private transition zones between public and private spaces, gathering places at multiple scales from intimate corner spaces to community plazas, physical layouts that naturally create what sociologists call repeated spontaneous encounters among residents. Sensory management in urban design. The urban sensorscape, the combined effects of visual, acoustic, olfactory, and tactile qualities, shapes psychological experience. Cities attentive to these dimensions show better psychological outcomes. What makes some cities psychologically healthier? Certain cities consistently demonstrate better psychological health outcomes. Their distinguishing qualities often include balanced stimulation, restoration patterns. The healthiest cities provide psychological rhythm, alternating opportunities for stimulation and restoration within daily patterns. They create intentional stimulation gradients rather than abrupt transitions, allowing residents to modulate exposure. Copenhagen's finger plan, development along transit, green wedges between, and Kyoto's interweaving of active zones with temple grounds are examples. Multi-scale green networks. These cities develop interconnected natural elements functioning at different scales, from pocket parks to urban forests, ensuring residents encounter nature throughout daily movements. Singapore's city in a garden strategy exemplifies this, creating continuous biophilic reinforcement. Social infrastructure prioritization. Cities supporting better psychological health demonstrate robust social infrastructure, physical places and arrangements that enable social connection. A study in social science medicine found social infrastructure quality predicted mental health outcomes more strongly than economic indicators or healthcare access. These cities invest in what Eric Klenenberg calls palaces for the people, libraries, community centers, public pools, and ensure high-quality public space networks within walking distance of most residences. The most supportive public spaces combine comfort, configurational flexibility, and cultural inclusivity, the 3 Cs. Examples include Barcelona's superblocks and Seoul's Cheonggyecheon stream restoration. Legible identity and meaning. Cities fostering psychological flourishing typically maintain legible identity, distinctive character, and cultural continuity that create a sense of place and existential orientation. This counters placelessness, the loss of distinctive identity through standardization, which research links to poorer mental health outcomes. Successful cities maintain continuity through change, creating a legible narrative that connects people to an ongoing community story, like Freiburg's integration of medieval and sustainable design, or Kyoto's traditional machiya alongside modern structures. Finding your personal urban sanctuary. While systemic design is crucial, individual choices can dramatically impact your urban well-being by creating a personal urban sanctuary. Creating micro-restoration zones. Establish small-scale personal spaces designed for psychological recovery from urban intensity. Even a tiny balcony with plants or a window seat can serve as a psychological decompression chamber. Effective zones offer sensory contrast with urban conditions, e.g., a reduced noise, natural elements, perceived control over conditions, meaningful personal elements creating place attachment, and clear boundary definitions signaling a transition to personal territory. Even in very constrained housing, these are possible. Strategic nature integration. Intentionally incorporate natural elements into daily patterns. Strategic nature engagement, rather than segregating nature contact into occasional outings. Develop nature networks involving regular, even brief engagement with diverse urban nature. This might include morning coffee on a plant-filled balcony for circadian light, lunchtime visits to pocket parks for midday recovery, walking meetings on tree-lined routes, evening sky watching rituals for self-transcendent experience, or weekend exploration of urban ecological features to develop place-specific nature literacy. Consistency often matters more than duration for urban psychological balance. Social oasis development. Meaningful social engagement requires intention in cities where proximity without intimacy can prevail. Develop personal social oases by cultivating a meaningful social portfolio, diverse connections serving different psychological needs. This could involve hyperlocal neighborhood connections, interest-based communities, chosen tribe connections, third-place relationships, e.g., in cafes, libraries, or digital physical hybrid communities. The key is a diverse social ecosystem. Rhythmic urban navigation. Develop psychological navigation patterns, movement routines that strategically engage with urban environments to support well-being. Create well-being routes that might take longer but offer psychological benefits. Examples include morning routes incorporating natural elements for mood and circadian regulation, lunch breaks involving distinct environment changes for psychological refreshment, commute variations to prevent route blindness, and weekend psychological geography explorations to discover new areas for novelty and expanded psychological territory. This involves sensory intentionality, conscious attention to the experiential qualities of movement. The urban future towards psychological sustainability. As global urbanization continues, creating psychologically sustainable cities is a central challenge. The emerging field of urban cognitive ecology integrates neuroscience, environmental psychology, and urban design to reimagine cities as psychological habitats. Just as we have environmental impact assessments for physical ecology, frameworks for psychological impact assessment are developing, asking if developments support flourishing or deplete resources. This approach recognizes urban psychological health as central to city success, affecting economic productivity, social cohesion, and public health. When urban environments support psychological well-being, they enable the creativity and cooperation needed to address other urban challenges. Understanding the psychological dimensions of urban experience becomes essential collective wisdom. By recognizing cities as psychological habitats, we can create urban futures that support, rather than strain human flourishing, harnessing urban intensity's creative potential while providing the necessary restoration for sustained well-being.